Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. This week, South Korea is celebrating Climate Change Week, dedicated to raising awareness about the impacts of climate change and promoting actions towards carbon neutrality and climate adaptation. As the nation grapples with more unpredictable weather patterns, such as unseasonal snowfalls in April and heavy rainfall, the urgency for climate action has never been more apparent. So with a focus on both immediate and long-term solutions, South Korea has rolled out initiatives like the carbon neutral point system and the climate insurance to protect vulnerable groups from the growing effects of climate-related disasters. But these are just the beginning. To discuss the broader picture today, joining us are two distinguished experts. We are joined by Chung So-young, Professor of International Studies at Korea University. Welcome, Professor.
Hello. Thank you.
And we're also joined by Aigo Dai, Distinguished Professor of Atmospheric and Environmental Sciences at the University of Albany, State University of New York. Great to have you, Professor.
Hi, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you too. So let's start our discussion with Professor Chung first. So like I've said, this week is South Korea's Climate Change Week, and this is a pivotal moment to highlight the country's commitment to carbon neutrality. Given the recent unusual weather patterns, Professor, like snowfall in April and intense rainfall across the nation, could you elaborate on the critical need for heightened climate awareness in the country?
Oh, yes, I think that experiencing very unusual weather pattern happens not only in Korea, but also here in The Hague, where I am visiting right now, which means that it seems like everybody from our daily lives are starting to feel that, oh, climate change is really real. But the challenge that we need to deal with is that based on this understanding, actually, most of the people don't understand how to address the climate change problems. It's going to be really challenging and important to coordinate the different government policies. At the same time, there are a lot of opportunities, actually, that we can enjoy, not only from addressing climate change, but also from creating new jobs and others. So it's necessary, not only the government, also media as a whole, to raise the awareness of all these different aspects of the climate change issues. I think that's critical, not only in Korea, but also in outside the world as well.
Right, so raising awareness is crucial, and having a step forward to learn how to address it would be also important. Now to Professor Dai, as a global expert on atmospheric and environmental patterns, you've observed devastating floods in Bolivia, early heat waves in India and Pakistan. Given these events, how do you foresee the frequency of such kind of extreme weather phenomena increasing, and what are the key global drivers behind these weather conditions?
Yes, we've seen frequent extreme weather events around the world in recent decades. Such changes are consistent with climate model predictions on the increasing greenhouse gases. So given the continued increase in carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, I would expect more such extreme events, such as intense precipitation, floods, drought, to continue in the coming years and the decades. Regarding the causes, since only human-made produced greenhouse gases have been increasing in the climate system, and the models predict increased extreme events under such increasing greenhouse gases, I think the human-induced global warming is largely responsible and behind the shift towards more extreme events. Also, natural variability can cause some events to occur from year to year, but the long-term trend, long-term increasing trend in such events are very likely due to human-induced global warming.
Right, so it's really alarming to think that these extreme weather events are not isolated incidents, but also a part of a larger global trend. And understanding the actual causes would be crucial to address the root of this problem. Now, let's turn to agriculture, Professor Dai. As we know, this is one of the most vulnerable sectors to the impacts of climate change. and unpredictable weather significantly would affect crop yields. Could you share some innovative global solutions that are being implemented to help farmers adapt, and what lessons could be applied to other regions facing similar challenges?
Yeah, climate change is affecting agriculture through around the world, through a more frequent extreme weather events, shifting growing seasons, and increasing drought. Farmers are trying to cope with changing climate and the weather patterns through many different ways. These ways include diversifying crops and livestock, for example, by introducing drought resistant and heat tolerant crops or livestock breeds. Also adapting climate smart farming techniques such as conservation agriculture practice, agroforestry by integrating trees with crops to preserve erosion, to prevent erosion and retain moisture. Also organic farming by reducing use of chemicals to enhance soil moisture. Other practice farmers are dealing with, including using new technologies and the data, for example, using weather forecast apps to planting and harvesting, using satellite and remote sensing data to monitor crop health, developing climate resilient seeds through biotechnology. There are many other ways, but I think there are certain ways, such as shifting planting calendars by adjusting sowing and harvesting times based on changing seasonal patterns, rainfall patterns, and growing crops in cooler months to avoid extreme heat. So there are certain practice farmers have already been doing. I think even the regions will likely need to explore their own practice to adapt and reduce changing climate.
Right, so adapting to the climate change would also be helpful, like changing the terms and also making use of the different technologies that are available lately. Now, let's also turn into the response to glowing climate risks here in South Korea. The government has introduced the climate insurance system to support vulnerable communities impacted by these weather events. Professor Chung, what's your assessment of these approach, and how effective do you think it could be in mitigating the damage from climate-related disasters here in South Korea?
Well, actually, that system was first introduced by the province called the Gyeonggi Province in Republic of Korea in April, actually this month. And then the aim was to help out actually those who have a vulnerability actually to address the climate change issues in terms of the physical problems, in terms of their health problems. It's more like a public sector oriented insurance system to help out those who are in a very difficult positions to deal with the climate change issues. I think it's a very positive efforts done by the government, because even if the whole budget will be provided by the government itself, however, systems that the government tries to use is to utilize some of the market systems through the insurance systems that have been available from the private sector, in the sense that this can be one of the cornerstones actually to reach out to help out those who are in the vulnerable situation, using some of the market and private sector's contributions by the governments. I hope that this kind of approach can be further unfolded by the government in the near future, so that all the people, not only in Korea, also maybe in outside of Korea, who needs some help from the public sector, can get those benefits.
Right, it really does sound like a practical step in protecting vulnerable communities, and if it will be implemented well, it could certainly offer peace of mind for people who are most at risk from these risks. Now, alongside this measure, Professor Chung, South Korea also rolled out initiatives like the carbon neutral points system to encourage public participation in climate action, how would you evaluate the effectiveness of these programs in fostering widespread engagement, and what else could be done to, raise public participation?
Sure. I think this policy has had a little bit of a longer history of the implementation in Korea. Actually, it was introduced in the 2010, actually almost 15 years ago, by the Ministry of Environment to provide the sort of incentives to the households to save the energies in electricity, in the water, and in other climate change related issues. And number of the participating household is actually more than the 2 million, so which is a pretty significant by number. And then I think that every system has been well tapped into the regular electricity bill and then the water bill systems in Korea. And then no matter whether this system works, by yourself in every household, it is working really well. And then I do hope that the other incentivized systems, can be also tap into the, daily, household lifestyle systems like this, and that will only help out the Republic of Korea to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, also help out avoiding, vulnerable impacts by climate change in general.
Right. So as of now, it's around 2 million households, but if this would multiply, it would definitely amplify the impact of these initiatives. Now, many countries, including South Korea, are striving to achieve carbon neutrality. Professor Dai, from your perspective, what kind of role does international cooperation play in achieving these ambitious global climate targets? And how can nations collaborate more effectively to share, knowledge and also resources in managing these risks?
Yeah, I think it's critically important to cut down the greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible to avoid dangerous climate change. Let's see. Yeah, but the international collaboration obviously is very important because to achieve this global target, all nations, especially the major economies in the world, should work together to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions as much as possible. For example, by rapidly adapting to renewable energy, such as solar and wind power, we need to continue to develop new technologies to help us shift our energy sources away from fossil fuel to low emission green energies in order to slow down global warming and avoid dangerous consequences. International collaboration is obviously critically important in combating climate, as this is a global issue that cannot be addressed by individual countries. I hope national leaders around the world will recognize this urgent issue and come together to work out effective policies to slow down global warming and cope with changing climate.
Right. Let's do hope more countries would put their heads together in tackling this global problem. Now, as South Korea, as one of the world's leading industrial nations, we actually face a lot of challenge of balancing rapid industrial growth with the urgent need to reduce carbon emissions. Professor Chung, in your view, which sectors should South Korea prioritize in this transition, and what are the key strategies for balancing economic growth with environmental responsibility?
Yeah, South Korea has been positioned as one of the difficult countries to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, mainly because of our, energy-intensive industrial structure with a large number of population with, small size of the land. So in the sense that South Korea has been thriving to find out how to best to utilize the available, capacities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Main sectors include the power sector, and then industrial process, and the buildings, transportation, almost all the sectors. And then how to do it, that is the question that the South Korea needs to answer on in this sense. And then it has been strongly recommended by the many experts and the international society, even government itself, to deploy the low carbon and carbon neutral technologies, including the renewables. And then here in Korea, nuclear technologies and CCUS, and then some other, various, carbon neutral technologies that will not only reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also increase number of the jobs because of the deployment of these technologies. More importantly, as a global trading power, Republic of Korea can also participate in global efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, through which actually we can share those reduced emissions for the purpose of implementing South Korea's emission reduction target using carbon market that is available under the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. So overall, we have a vast amount of the challenges. At the same time, Republic of Korea has an ability to transform these challenges into the form of good opportunities to sustain our economic growth in a carbon neutral way. So in that sense, it's up to the government and also our individuals who can act whether or not we can get these opportunities on our hand. So that's what we have to work on.
Right, so a delicate balance indeed. It's very crucial for South Korea's government and also the people, our individuals. Now, let's also look at the international climate agreements like the Paris Agreement. Professor Dai, how would you evaluate the current progress in their implementation, particularly in light of the increasing frequency and severity of climate disasters worldwide? And also tell us what more needs to be done on a global scale.
Yeah, I think international climate agreements such as the Paris Agreement are very important for combating climate change. Unfortunately, we have not met our global targets set by these agreements in recent decades in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. However, any effort to slow down greenhouse gas emissions is better than no effort at all. So clearly, the international community needs to realize the urgency and work together to slow down greenhouse gas emissions. We need to better educate the public and our leaders about the causes and the consequences of the ongoing climate change so that they understand why it is urgent to cut back on burning fossil fuel. With strong public support on our national leaders, we are likely to take climate change as a more serious issue. I think the United Nations can play a better, stronger role in negotiating and enforcing international climate agreements. We need a mechanism to monitor progress made by individual nations in reducing greenhouse gases emissions and make the public aware of the progress made by each nation. Therefore, this could raise public awareness and the pressure on our leaders in cutting down greenhouse gas emissions. Therefore, I think we need to educate the public better and as well as our leaders. Therefore, we would have a better chance to increase the international collaboration as well as certain mechanism to enforce such agreements.
Right. So though we are actually working in a global scale, there still needs to be more efforts to, actually translate into tangible effects. So from a global standpoint, Professor Dai, what do you believe are the most effective strategies to mitigate the impacts of climate change? And are there specific actions that developing nations should focus on to reduce their vulnerability to climate-related risks?
I believe the most effective strategies to mitigate impact of climate change are first to cutting down our emissions of greenhouse gases as much as possible. The next would be to improve our knowledge about the upcoming climate change, such as sea level rise and the changes in extreme weather events. And finally, better with the knowledge, better prepare us from the upcoming changes. Developing nations often have less resources and poor infrastructures to combat climate change. In order to improve local air quality, as well as to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, developing countries probably should adopt clear energy policies to avoid building coal-fired power plants and encourage use of electric vehicles as well as solar wind powers. So they may also seek international financial and technological support in their efforts to combat climate change. So we'll need some help from the developed nations in terms of financial resources as well as a new technology in the transition to away from the fossil fuel.
Right, so this climate issue actually cannot be really done in a single individual or a single country scale. It really requires global cooperation. Now, finally, to Professor Chung, in what areas do you believe South Korea can lead the global fight against climate change? And also, as individuals ourselves, what steps can we take to contribute meaningfully to address the climate crisis?
Well, that short answer of mine to the question is that we can lead almost every area where we need to fight against climate change with other partner countries in the world, especially in the context of the sort of the weak reaction by the U.S. President Trump's administration at this time. I think this may rather be able to create new opportunities for Republic of Korea to fill the gap between what you should be and then what is happening right now, because Republic of Korea has an ability to provide various technical assistances to developing countries. At the same time, we can team up with various advanced economies, not only the governments, also private sectors in general. Of course, the very basic ground to do this is through the United Nations, the UNFCCC regime, where Republic of Korea can take the leadership role between developed and developing countries as a growing, power in the climate work. At the same time, we can focus on Indo-Pacific region, where a lot of countries are located. Potential impact of increasing the greenhouse gas emissions is largely big in this region. So as a neighbor country, Republic of Korea can team up with some of the critical countries, including Japan, and then Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and then possibly China, and if necessary, United States, to team up with the other vulnerable developing countries. I see from the Republic Koreans' point of view, only the good opportunities that South Korea can lead with other partner countries who are willing to do so. So, we will see how it will be unfold.
Right. Could you also remind us of some tips that us individuals could also do to, provide a hand?
Yes, sure. Individuals, so we have a pretty, constructive civil society, organizations in Korea. I think they have been contributing to a large extent to develop the good, work of the Republic of Korea inside. But at the same time, our civil society organizations needs to be more globalized. Also, our, deep education systems that we have built on, that has been educated not only individuals of Korea, also we can actually share our experiences with other, not only developed countries, but also developing countries, so that we can thrive to build, global, capacity to address the climate change issues by individuals. All these can only be possible only when individuals have good wills to do so. And as I said earlier today, that we need to know not only the status of the climate change problem, but also we need to know how to move forward. That's also a critical point.
Right. Thank you for the tips, Professor. So these small contributions combined would definitely be of great help. And as we move forward into the future of climate action, it's clear that both local and global efforts are crucial to address the challenges. And South Korea's Climate Week is a reminder that each small action counts, but also that the need for international cooperation is stronger than ever. We will have to wrap up our program for tonight. Thank you so much for your insights and your time, Professor Dai and Professor Chung. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for addressing this very important issue.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.